today's Giraffe Talk, we're going to go over the United States foreign policy, weird news, political turmoil, and the State of the Union.
Breaking news. Suspect is still on the run.
The victim remains.
We will explain how it affects you and your expert sources indicate.
The story is still developing. Reports still remain unconfirmed.
They're calling it Kino.
The longest government shutdown in United States history continues. Federal workers keep working without payment. Military did receive a charitable donation from an undisclosed donor, which is a good thing in a way, but it's also completely illegal. This is because it allows people to choose which parts of the government can keep running and which ones are going to be unfunded, without any Congress oversight, without any court oversight. Who was it? Elon Musk? Peter Thiel? Trump said he ain't telling us. Mike Johnson's blaming the Democrats. Schumer's blaming the Republicans. Trump said, hey, I know I said it's the president's fault when a government shutdown happens, but you can't blame me for this one. And really what it is, there has been no negotiations. Republicans want to cut out the ACA, which will cut out healthcare for millions of Americans. But they claim that the Democrats are trying to give healthcare to illegal immigrants. I don't know how that works since they don't have a social security number. How do they apply for healthcare? SNAP benefits are about to run out. Luckily, there was an emergency fund for them. But Trump decided he's going to disobey court orders and not use these funds. The president says that the people starve is the Democrats' fault. They should have just signed off on the budget. The Democrats should know the GOP is not going to negotiate, not going to rewrite the budget. So they need to just accept whatever they hand over to the Democrats. This is a distinct turnaround from what Trump has said in years past. Well, government shutdown is ultimately the president's fault. But ultimately, I think we can all agree that they just need to get their asses into their seats and do the job, make a budget, get America running again, get these people paid. Sorry, Ma'am Danny has won the election for New York City's mayor. Now, the rich and the elite, established Democrats and the GOP says this would end in utter disaster for the United States. New York City is a major financial center. If he starts taxing the billionaires in there, they'll leave the United States. Now, me personally, I think this is a bluff. Where they're gonna leave to? Russia, China, India, Brazil, where they'll seize their assets? Australia, Europe, where they're gonna tax them even harder? Africa, the Middle East, where they have unstable governments and economies? Shit's going down in the Caribbean. Over 8 ships have already been bombed, and a US aircraft carrier has been deployed to that area. Now, the GOP remains adamant that they're only destroying drug smuggler boats. Although some people have questioned, what if these are just a bunch of goddamn fishermen? In Louisiana, a truck carrying rhesus monkeys used in research labs overturned. The monkeys then escaped. The truck driver reported these monkeys were highly aggressive and were infected with herpes and COVID. Police officers responded by putting them all to death. Turns out, they weren't even really aggressive. I don't fucking know. Elon Musk has launched Grokpedia. It's a website designed to rip off Wikipedia and dumb down the articles for the average user. Dick Cheney has passed away. He'll be forever known as the Secretary of Defense during the Gulf War and the Panama Invasion, the mastermind behind the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the pioneer of the Patriot Act. Dick Cheney may no longer be with us, but his legacy will live on forever, for better or worse. RFK has announced that Tylenol does not cause autism after all. While it is good that RFK is looking into the causes behind different diseases and afflictions, I can't help but feel he's just now understanding science. He's just now discovering a scientific method. Healthcare executive of Novo Nordisk, Gordon Findlay, fainted at the White House during a press conference regarding weight loss drugs. Luckily, Dr. Oz was there, because Robert F. Kennedy got the fuck out. I do want to give RFK a little bit of leeway. Maybe he had an important phone call to make. Maybe he remembered that he left his oven on. FBI Director Kash Patel has vowed to get rid of sports gambling. He's cracking down on that shit. He also proclaimed that he stopped a terrorist plot that was supposed to be enacted on Halloween, although these allegations have not been confirmed yet. He was also found taking a date on a government jet. Seems to be a misappropriation of funds, but whatever. Who even cares anymore? Finally, now the main topic of today, the State of the Union. Many United States citizens are concerned about the direction the nation is taking, as President Trump constructed a cult of personality around him. Are the MAGA Republicans not only in the political ideology, but in the cult? Does President Trump have aspirations to be a dictator? Is the United States sliding into fascism? Is our foreign policy changing into jingoism? I think it's completely absurd Did you even have to ask questions like this? Now we here at Giraffe Productions decided the best way to answer these questions is by defining these terms. So we took the liberty of poring over research, over studies, over philosophical papers, over dissertations to construct a definition for the terms such as cult of personality, a cult, a dictatorship, fascism, and jingoism. You're watching Giraffe TV.
What is the state of the What is a cult of personality?
Cult of personality is a propaganda technique that creates an idealized, heroic image of a leader. And there's 7 main traits behind it. First trait is that the leader must be deified. He must be presented in a heroic light as an infallible figure. The second trait is that the leader must have an arrogance about him and a demand for complete admiration. The sycophants surrounding the leader will exaggerate his accomplishments and his best qualities while underplaying any negative traits. The public shows complete devotion, complete obedience, and complete flattery towards the leader. They follow the leader with no questions asked. If he changes his stance, so do the followers. Followers completely embrace the leader's mission. If anybody questions the leader, if anybody criticizes his actions, if anybody shows the slightest sign of dissent, they're immediately silenced, punished, or even kicked out of the organization. Social media and mass media just pays attention to the leader, shows him in a positive light, and inhibits any other viewpoints. The leaders use patriotism as a tool. They constantly put on rallies, parades to show their devotion to the leader. Does President Trump project his image in the manner of a cult of personality? If Trump has constructed a cult of personality around him, it would manifest by hiring a bunch of sycophants to surround him, a bunch of yes men. They'd be propaganda depicting him as a king, as an emperor, that he's a warrior, as if he's anointed by God, that he's a protector of the people, that he has a warm heart for the average citizen. His supporters would see any criticism towards Trump as a personal attack. He's almost exalted as a religious figure. So insulting him is almost like insulting Jesus. So you tell me with this information, does it sound like that Trump has constructed a cult of personality? Or does that sound at all like Trump's public image?
What is a cult?
But what is a cult? It's a small in-group with strange religious practices, with strong devotion to a leader who expresses complete control over the group. And I found there's 9 major traits of a cult. First, of course, is an authoritarian leader. The second trait is that leader must exploit the members. The third trait is that the cult offers its exclusive secret knowledge. The scientific institutions, the experts, the intellectuals, they don't know the truth. But this cult does. They have a strict regimentation of the followers, strict rules, strict qualifiers. Sometimes it's exhibited by a dress code as well. And the followers must show absolute loyalty to the group above all else. The fifth trait is that cult members must ask no questions. They must avoid any outside information. Any information that's not approved by the leader is obviously false. The sixth trait is that the members must isolate themselves, cut ties to friends and family members. They cannot leave the group. And if anybody does leave the group, you must forget about that member entirely. The seventh trait is that the leaders use fear, guilt, and manipulation to control their members. Now the eighth trait is that any criticism or action against the group is met with legal repercussions. And this goes by outsiders or insiders. Finally, there's extreme indoctrination. They use misinformation, manipulation, and even catchy slogans. This is all in an attempt to brainwash the cultists. So how does manifest in regards to MAGA potentially being a cult? They'd cut off ties with anybody that's not a Republican. They'd demonize them. They'd see others as being simple-minded sheep, brainwashed masses, or demonic figures trying to pervert America. They disregard any facts or statistics that do not align with their beliefs. And they would believe that they're the only ones using real facts. Everybody else is using feelings or emotions. MAGA Republicans would see any other belief system as being propaganda. The public would swear reality to Trump rather than the nation itself. The most important aspect of a person is how much they believe in what Trump has to say. They cut off ties with friends and family members and isolate themselves, lock themselves into echo chambers. Trump would also have to be exploiting the public, exploiting MAGA, whether it's financial or sexual. He find himself in the middle of financial crimes, getting some kind of financial gain from them, scamming the system, selling them shoddy products, asking for donations. Either that, or he find himself in the middle of some weird human trafficking sex crime. And anybody who fails Trump would be kicked out of MAGA and seen as the enemy. He'd pursue some kind of legal action against them. Does that sound like something MAGA would do? Does MAGA share the characteristics of a cult.
What is a dictator?
Now, what is a dictator? Of course, it's a ruler with total power, and usually they gain that power with force or emergency political powers. I found 13 main qualifying traits of a dictator. The first, of course, is a cult of personality and a grandiose self-image. The second trait is getting rid of any democratic processes, any voting, any other political parties. The third trait is eliminating any checks and balances. Fourth trait is a government that dissolves any other political parties, any political opponents, any dissidents. So you can only really vote for two political rivals in the same party. The fifth is rule by decree. The leader makes unilateral decisions with no consultation. Sixth is having political dissenters completely suppressed. This might be people from your own political party that don't necessarily align completely with the leader's goals. The sixth trait is an ideology spread by propaganda, with other forms of mass media suppressed if they did not follow the official narrative. Freedom of speech and assembly may be restricted or completely eliminated. The leaders commonly adopt religion to further their goals. They try to tie themselves to religion so they can say they have the mandate of God on their side. Their cause is holy and just. By definition, they cannot be wrong, because that would mean that God is wrong. The seventh trait is a strong advocacy of violence. Furthermore, dictators eventually put their eye on world control. Now, whether this is through military conquest, to ignoring of treaties, or economic policies, to the threat of military intervention, therefore establishing a hegemonic empire. Try to force other nations to fall in line. There's also economic control by the government. Whether it's by Keynesian economics, tariffs, taxes, or rug pulls, they find a way to manipulate the economy and increase their personal wealth at the expense of the public. Sometimes they bail out companies, sometimes they buy them out. And finally, a dictator has a strong control over the public, intimidation, threats, imprisonment, torture, and even death. Usually they have a specialized group that will raid homes and find political opponents or minorities. So utilizing this knowledge, how would it look like if Trump really did have aspirations to become a dictator? He'd work on eliminating checks and balances, try to shut down parts of the government, overtake the legal system, or ignore laws overall. We will see more and more power being allocated to the executive branch, and in particular, the presidential seat. Free elections will be in danger. Long-term government employees will be replaced with people who pledge fealty to Trump. Secretaries of different departments will be replaced with those that are loyal to Trump rather than those who have experience in the field. He would censor dissenting voices, dissenting media, and advocate for violence for people who are not a part of the political movement. The people would exalt Trump as being the one who's willing to break the laws to do the right thing. Sometimes you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet. So what do you think? Does that sound like the America that Trump wants? Does that sound like what his supporters want? Does a dictatorship sound like Trump's overall goal? Now, what is fascism? Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, ultra-nationalistic political ideology. I found 14 main traits in this political ideology. Most important is an autocratic dictator. Second trait is a jingoistic military. Third is the oppression of any political opposition. This can include the dissolution of other political parties or election fraud. So in America, disrupting the electoral process would be anything from gerrymandering, redrawing voting districts, suppressing votes, disenfranchising potential voters. It could even include shadow governments or puppet leaders. Fourth is a belief in a social hierarchy. Some people by definition that are subhuman, other people that are human, and other people that are superhuman. So how would a strict social hierarchy look in America? That would be an institutionalized discrimination depending on people's religion, with their race, with their ethnicity, with their gender, and establishing an in-group and an out-group. Some people have more rights than others. In America, we already kind of see that with your wealth level. There's the poverty class, low class, middle class, upper class. And people have said for years that the middle class is shrinking. This is an ongoing phenomenon. The wealth is being allocated to the top 1%. Fifth is a strong regimentation of society, an obsession with punishing criminals to the full extent of the law. Sixth is a subordination of individuality for the good of the nation. And this is tied to a powerful expression of nationalism. You yourself aren't important. It's what you can do for your nation that is most important. Seventh is a policy that unites the public against a minority. They're like a scapegoat. Now this scapegoat minority is portrayed as being weak and pathetic, but at the same time somehow strong enough to threaten the very fabric of the entire goddamn nation. The eighth trait is that the power of corporations is protected. This leads to widespread corruption in the government and extreme cronyism. Knife traders, the ruling elite, becomes entwined with religion. They portray themselves as acting on behalf of God. They try to use religious texts to back up their action. And if you go against them, you may as well be going against God. You may as well be going against righteousness, holiness, and justice itself. 10th trait. This is the dissolution of workers' rights. This can manifest in a multitude of ways, whether it's labor unions being restricted, workers' rights being eliminated, destroying programs such as OSHA, healthcare being taken away, the income decreasing or remaining stagnant while the profits soar, putting more power into CEOs, hedge fund managers, Wall Street, and taking it away from the common everyday worker. 11th trait is the control of the media and suppression of information. So this is the suppression of any figures, statistics, or news stories that do not follow the official narrative. So any negative news is going to be suppressed, and positive news that exalts the leaders, that says the government is doing fine, the economy is booming, those are the only ones that's going to make it to the press. Especially the information that goes against the wishes of the government. It makes the government look inefficient or ineffective. 12th trait is an obsession with national security. You gotta keep the outsiders out of the country. Anybody who may upset the status quo must be kicked out. A lot of times, the border control evolves into being prison guards for the citizens of the nation. As the quality of life decreases and people want to leave, they turn their guns on the citizens to supposedly protect. 13th trait of a fascist government is a strong preference for being anti-art and anti-intellectual. Science institutions are defunded if not dismantled. Universities are shut down. The arts are suppressed or censored. The 14th trait is strong predilection towards human rights violations. Now, a good bit of our Constitution protects against such things as these. Got your right to privacy, got your right to a speedy trial for jury of your peers. You gotta get a warrant, anti-discrimination laws, there's worker rights, and fascist governments hate things like these. They want to eliminate them. They see the public as being more property to be utilized to strengthen the nation rather than individual. This is similar to workers' rights being suppressed. They also support strong gender roles and sexism. Women should know their place is at the home. Men are born to work or to die in war. So utilizing this information, how would a fascist government look like in the United States? Well, it would be led by an authoritarian dictator. They would establish a social hierarchy, establish a model of what a true United States citizen is. And that definition would get increasingly narrow. They'd pick out little minorities to target and blame for all of the problems. One that they would claim is weak, but also degrading the foundations of America. With the public support, they'll go after them and set up the legal precedent to use against other minorities. And as they set legal precedent, they'll use this against other groups of people. Elections will be rigged, dissenting voices will be silenced, individuality will be suppressed in favor of a strict definition of what a United States citizen looks like, what a United States citizen acts like. Workers' rights will get terminated, corporations gain more power, corporations become parts of the government. Government officials start buying up other companies, in a way, socializing the economy. Human rights will be terminated for the greater good, whether it's economic or national security. The police will become militarized, and the military start doing police actions. An agency will be designated to be outside of federal law and will eventually be used to target citizens. There'll be an agency that's immune to federal regulations and laws. Advisors that report to the head of state will be deployed to different departments. People will lose social services and amenities. Grand declarations will be made saying that they have to ignore the laws for the safety of all Americans. The government will try to align themselves with a religion. So you tell me, does that sound like what America is doing? Does it sound like something we've been doing? Does the United States share any traits of fascism? Now, does any of that sound like an America the GOP would like? Does that sound like the America that the GOP wants?
What is jingoism?
Finally, there's jingoism. Jingoism is simply defined as a strong, aggressive, militant foreign policy. There's four major traits. First one is extreme nationalism. Everything you do should be in the service of your nation. And anything a foreigner does is strictly against your nation's well-being. Second trait is a sense of national superiority. This doesn't just mean being proud of your nation, but it means disrespecting other nations, disregarding other points of view, not following treaties, not respecting other nations' rights. Third one is simply an aggressive foreign policy. This is showcased by a nation constantly issuing threats, trying to establish a hegemonic empire, sending out military strikes against their neighboring countries, dissolving alliances, going back on treaties, demanding resources and land from other nations. One of the most essential aspects for a jingoistic foreign policy is a strong propaganda machine. You can't let the public think what you're doing is wrong, otherwise the whole plan falls apart. Does our current foreign policy resemble jingoism? So what does jingoism look like in America? Essentially, it's a rebranding of the military, more of a focus on war than defense. Usually the police are militarized and the military is used for police actions. There'd be a strong focus on increasing military strength. More military actions will occur in foreign nations. There'd be the dissolution of alliances. There'd be aggressive acts committed on neutral or allied countries. And the details of treaties will be ignored. After hearing these definitions of a cult of personality, a cult, a dictator, fascist nation, and a jingoistic foreign policy, you tell me, does this sound like Trump's America? Does this sound like MAGA? Does this sound like the Republican Party? This is Giraffe Productions.
The world is a terrifying place.
So what's the future of the United States? Will it fall like the myriad of empires before? Is it an innate trait of governments to become more authoritarian? Is Peter Thiel and the Heritage Foundation's goal turning America into an isolationist, authoritarian, totalitarian, technocratic, fascist slave state unavoidable? Will Elon Musk ever stop acting like a social, anxiety-ridden nerd? Will Peter Higson finally conquer his alcoholism and stop texting war plans to reporters? Is the American dream dead? Are we in the era of weak men making hard time? And are these weak men our leaders that are eroding the nation, stealing our budget, and sabotaging our future just for a quick buck? Or is this just an overreaction of some scared citizens concerned about the future? They spend all day doom scrolling and start throwing around terms they don't know the definitions of. They want to blame the government for inadequacies in their life. They want to hold them accountable for a plan that they don't quite comprehend.